What you're about to hear is an excerpt from our weekly podcast, which goes live to everybody every single Wednesday, or you can access it right now just by supporting our Patreon, which is patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. Thanks.
I'm going to talk about The Long Dark. It's not a full review. I haven't played the whole game. So that tells you something in itself. Played it in early access, yeah. So I played it for like 29 hours. That was just a sandbox mode.
That's right.
And they've since released, August the 1st, I think it was, it went gold.
Yes, you're right.
And they've released the linear experience. This is like the story mode, basically. Right. And this is highly anticipated. This game is developed by Hinterland. Atmospheric, first-person survival game. Nothing of the like of which that I've seen before. It's so atmospheric and immersive. It's based in the Canadian snowy wilderness. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about Wintermeat, the linear experience. And the beginning part of it is a bit of a tutorial. You get used to the mechanics of the game, how to craft, how to survive, basically, how to survive the cold, the wildlife. It's so difficult. And that's like the beauty of this game, is that it's so brutal. It's a brutal game, and it's one of those games where you don't really need a narrative, because a lot of the gameplay is like emergent, right? You might be faced with a situation where you need to go out and hunt and get some food or forage or gather or scavenge, but you're faced with certain problems, like, oh, you might have an affliction, like you might have sprained your wrist or your ankle or something, and you might not have enough water. There might be wolves outside, and you've got to balance all these needs and requirements up with, how do I survive? How do I get to the next day? How do I get to the next hour? And then there's certain scenarios that you might be faced with. You might have a wolf attack or something, and then it creates a whole new set of problems. You're building this whole story around just surviving.
So you feel very desperate. You feel like you're barely clinging on for a lot of the time.
Exactly, and that's part of the beauty of this game. And if you like that kind of experience, well, you've got to think on your feet, how the am I going to get out of this situation? I would definitely recommend just the sandbox mode even. I'm not talking about the story mode here. This is the sandbox. I mean, I played it for 30 hours in early access and I loved it. Anyway, I kind of went off topic. I was going to talk about the story mode. The story mode, I've heard criticisms about. I've heard criticisms that the story is shite, right? And it's not shite at all. It's quite unique in the fact it's not tropey at all. You don't lose your memory. A family member isn't kidnapped or anything. You know, your plane crashes, right? And you get stranded. But this person you're in a plane with has gone. You got to try and find her. There's this mystery because this person wanted you to go somewhere for a certain reason. Now this person's gone. You don't know why you were going there, and you don't know where this person's gone. So you've got to find out all these answers, and that's what pushes you through the story. And I think it's kind of unique. I like stories where there's a mystery behind it. You're trying to uncover what the is going on here. Personally, I think that is a really good story.
What I was wondering was, is it a bit like how a walking simulator is, where you're discovering the mystery through reading journals, or do you meet other people along the way, or is that spoiling it?
From my experience in the first 4 hours or so, a lot of the villages and towns and houses, they're all deserted, right? Because there's been this apocalypse or whatever. Yeah. We don't know what that is. It's another mystery. It's something that you can discover, which again is awesome. But there's this one NPC that I've met. She tells me about what's been going on. She doesn't know everything. She doesn't answer all of my questions. There's certain side quests involved with getting these answers out of her, right? So you got to do her a favor. So she does you a favor, kind of thing. And you can see how that's going to play out. It's voice acted by the dude.
Yeah, David Hayter, the guy, Solid Snake, the original Solid Snake. I recognise that voice, and I was like, whoo! Yeah,
so it's a solid voice actor, but not all the lines are voice acted, right? The main quest and the main bits are voice acted, but then once she tells you the main bit, you've got a dialogue wheel where you choose what to discuss with her, a la Fallout, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That part you've got to read yourself. There's no dialogue to that. But then again, this is an independent studio. This is an independent game. Again, you've got to make allowances because they don't have the huge budget, and they're selling you the game at knockdown prices, not a AAA price of a game. So you can excuse that when you're looking for value for money. You might want it to be fully voice acted, but it's not practical. They'd run into troubles, like they'd run out of money if they tried to implement everything that would make the game ideal. So they've got to make cutbacks somewhere, basically. The key things that stand out for me in this game is just the atmosphere, just the setting, the scene. The music, it is awesome. Like just from loading up the title screen, the music itself, it sets the scene before you even started playing the game. It's like really tense and atmospheric. A lot of the game, right, is there's no music at all. It's completely silent, and you just listen to the wind howling and like the wolves howling. Or like wolves howling. Yeah, everything's howling in this game. And then you walk and you hear the snow crumpling underneath your feet. Yeah, and it's so tense because you don't know whether a bear's going to attack you or a wolf's going to attack you. But then like you might be reaching a peak on a mountain, and then the music kicks in, and it gives gives you like a spine-tingling moment where you're just like overlooking this whole valley. It's just a connection. There's like an emotional moment that happens naturally, or appears to be naturally, but it's like, wow,
very seamless. It just
it's atmospheric to the point where you're like, yes, I'm really invested in this game. I'm really invested in the setting and the story. And like I said, this is my personal experience with the game. So it's not going to apply to everyone. People, you know, it's a slow game. Some people will not like that. It's not an action game. You're not going to get loads of action out of it. It's a thinking man's game, I guess.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say. It's not an action game.
With the early access being 3 years in the making, the story has come along. And I believe it's episodic. That's right, isn't it?
It is episodic. They've released 2 episodes of 5 to begin with. I don't know off the top of my head when the next 3 episodes are coming, but they are going to be soon. And they are supporting this game beyond release. They've released 4 patches, I think, since it was released on Monday last week already. So support for this game is really high end. Is
there anything else that's been added since? Maybe a lot of people, because it's been around for 3 years, like you say, there might be people listening that have bought it a long time ago, played it. The story modes, it sounds like it's worth coming back to, but in case you're still not interested about the story, has there been any improvements to the sandbox mode, or is there another mode or anything like that? Is there any other additions?
Yeah, the addition of challenges, right? So you get these set piece scenarios where you might be faced with lasting 24 hours in an area with not a lot of food or something, or there's a blizzard outside, or you might be faced with a bear attack or something, how to survive after a bear attack. So there are these different challenges. So you've got sandbox mode, you've got challenges mode, and you've got the linear experience, which makes up for a really value for money package in my eyes. There's a lot of gameplay in this game.
Yeah, you could probably just play one of them and it would be worth it, right? You could, if you're just into sandbox, you could just play sandbox mode. If you only want to play the story, you know, like if there was a sandbox mode for like something like Firewatch, I'm sure people would play that.
I absolutely loved this sandbox mode because of the emerging gameplay, because you make your own stories as you go along, because it's an open world kind of thing, and you can do what you want. But the challenges you face will come because the world is so brutal, and I love that about it. And the sandbox mode itself, it's worth 30 hours to me. Like, I mean, I absolutely loved it. You know, just thinking about like the experience, just approaching a wolf and knowing that you're already fucked up as it is, you've got no food or anything, and you're on your last legs, and this wolf's coming up at you, and you're thinking, how the do I get out of this situation? And every time now I experience a wolf, I get a tingle down my spine. It's like, oh shit, I know this can end so badly. How the am I going to think on my feet and get out of this situation? It's so good.
Some Liam Neeson shit, like in the
Sounds
grey.
like the grey, doesn't
the
it?
grey, yeah. I know it's probably putting you on the spot a little bit, but who would you recommend this game to? Like fans of something like maybe like This War of Mine? That's a very desperate game where you're kind of on the edge of death at any time. Or is it more sort of for people who are like Firewatch or The Walking Dead or something?
Well, I think a combination, because it's kind of like Firewatch but with more gameplay, right? So you've got to craft things, you've got to find better clothes, and you got to fix up your clothes, you got to fix your weapons, you got to make sure that you gather enough resources to survive the night and shit. So there's a lovely like survival element to it, which you don't have in games like Firewatch. But This War of Mine is a good example of the kind of game mechanics that you need to gather resources to make sure that you survive to the next day.
You're always running out of one thing, aren't you? Either bandages or water or food.
Yeah, that's
is it. So I'm assuming this game's got all them in there, like food and water.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
warmth, I imagine, is a big one.
The weather itself it's its own personality. It can be really cold, it can be blizzardy, it can be really foggy, and which tends to be kind of warm. When it gets dark, you need a light source. Surviving against the weather is just one minor challenge in a sea of loads of different challenges. To sum up my thoughts of this game, it is brutal, it is atmospheric, it is immersive, and it is challenging. For them reasons, I love it, but it's not for everybody.
For anyone interested, it's out on PC, Mac, Linux, Xbox One, and PS4. So pretty much everything, unless you've got a Nintendo Switch. Guys, thanks very much for the discussion on Long Dark. If anyone else has got the Long Dark, let us know what you thought of it. Maybe you completely agree with Gaz. Let us know. The video you just heard was an excerpt from our weekly podcast. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Why not subscribe if you're new around here? And be sure to check out our Patreon, which is patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. Thank you.